Hi everyone. Hopefully you can hear and see me okay. There is a tiny delay on the chat to live, but I can see some of you are here. Thank you all for joining. Hi Hannah, hi Christiane, hi Shivam, hi TJ and Erica. Oh Brill, thanks Erica. Oh everybody, oh thank you so much for letting me know. Hi Christine, and thank you for your congratulations and 100 days. So yes, today we are marking the end of the Daily Art Challenge. So it's been 100 days of my sketchbook play, and also I reached 40k on Instagram, so this is like a double celebration. It just worked out around the same time, so absolutely perfect. And I do just want to say a huge thank you to all of you for your support, because the community that we've built together is honestly the best thing, and it's so nice to be able to share my art with you all and to receive such lovely support. So today I'm going to be working in this little zine that I've made. So we're going to be doing the front cover, so we're going to be doing two like landscapes. So this one is going to be like a coastal scene which we'll paint, and then I'm going to fill this in this afternoon, but I'm basically like doing an ode to all the pieces that have come before, so during the Daily Art Challenge. So this is towards the beginning, and I'm going to basically do it in like a journal style and write like the days and everything in between. Then we have this spread, and then this one, which is what I'm going to be working on live with you today. Hi Natalia, hi Anne, lovely to have you here. So this, I'm going to be working in this little panel for our first 30-minute reference, and then this is the end one which I still need to finish, and then obviously the front cover. So we are going to be working to timers today. I've just got these little bits which I'm going to put in between the pages so nothing smudges, which is basically what I do in my sketchbook. So this is a good chance for you to grab your materials. I'm going to be using gouache and coloured pencils and some Neocolors. Our first reference, which I will pop on screen, but it's basically the reference I use for my grandma's garden. So it's basically going to be this spread. I want to do this view here. So I'm going to just pop up our reference on screen. Oh, hi Maria, thanks Hannah. Yeah, I'm really pleased with how it's turning out so far, and I think once I add on all the text and my little notes it will work. So this scene that you can see here on the left is basically what I drew here. Now it is quite a detailed reference, so I'm going to try and walk you through how I tackle it, because I know 30 minutes isn't very long, but this does feel like a really small size for me. I'm usually working a lot larger, so I thought that 30 minutes should be enough and gives me enough time to add the details and still be chatting with you. If you want to see this reference bigger, I have popped it in the description with a link to my Google Drive, because it is my own photo. And then if you want a sneak peek of the second one, that's down there as well, which is a Pexels photo. So whilst we all settle in, I'm just going to get some more gouache out. TJ, 30 minutes isn't long. Oh, Omar's here. Hello, Omar. So I'm just going to get my paints ready. I haven't started our timer yet, but you can see our reference on the left, which is my grandma's beautiful garden. And working in this is probably about A6 size. This, the full spread is probably A5. And I'm going to do some more of the daily art pieces here, but we're just sticking to landscapes for today's. I've got my water jug, and I'll need some white, so let's get that down first. I was tempted to do this on a shorter amount of time and try and do 3 pieces, but I think that's a little mean for those of you painting along that don't work as loose or as quickly as I do, because especially with such a complicated reference, it can make it harder. So I've got my white ready. I'm going to put some green on there in a minute, but I don't want to muddy my page, so I'm going to start with the blue sky first. And let's just get my timer up. Okay, so I'm going to start our timer. So this one is 30 minutes for this one. Actually, I'll do it on my watch, so then I'll do it on my phone. So then we can hear it, and I'll try and remember to give you little updates for when like we're halfway through, but time does work differently on live streams, I find. Okay, our 30-minute timer is on. So I always start with the sky because I find that that gets muddy. Like I want a really nice clean blue. And I'm gonna just start mapping everything in. You can of course always start with your sketch, but if you followed me before, you know I'm not a fan of sketching first. I find myself getting quite bored if I have to sketch first and then paint on top of it. I find it's easier for me to just go with it. So that's my plan today. And obviously I have drawn this reference before, which helps a little bit in my sketchbook, but I'm just going to map out that sky with the blue gouache. And I'd love to know if you're drawing or painting along, or if you've just got me on in the background and we're just hanging out, or if you're painting something different. I'd love to know that as well, and what mediums you're using. Hi Sharon! Oh, I'm happy that you could join us. So I'm kind of just adding in my own clouds up here, as I usually do, because the sky is quite overexposed. But we're going to start with blocking in the basic shapes. So that's my sky, and I'm going to work over that once this is dry with those trees you can see in the corner. It's not shared on Patreon, Omar. It's in the description box, so you can find it just under the title. I put the link there so you can see it bigger. Christine's painting along with watercolour until food gets delivered. That's always good when that's coming along. Erica is drawing your grandma's garden in marker. Ooh, that's interesting. I'd love to see that when you're done, Erica. It is definitely a challenging photo, so we are going to be simplifying it. I'm just going to block in that house, so the roof there. It is a difficult photo. I haven't made it very easy for us, and I apologise. But hopefully seeing how I will tackle it will help. I'm adding in a bit of roof there that we can't actually see. Just extending it a little bit. So I'm starting with the main colours. So I'm actually going to swap to a Posca for this side bit of the pond. My granddad once fell in this pond, bless him. And so I always think of that when I see it, but it's a really lovely pond. So I'm just using the Posca marker. I'm probably going to go over this a little bit with green, but just having this as the base definitely helps. Then we've got a statue here. It kind of just helps, especially we don't have to get the perspective right. Don't worry too much about that. I kind of just want to map out that shape. I know, Christine. He just got very wet and just had a little swim with the fishes in there. So I'm coming in with my green now. I have a big jar of green which I'm using. This is Royal Talons. I've also got a big jar of white because they're cheaper this way, as well as a really big tube of white, which have been really helpful because I go through it so quickly. So I'm going to start mixing up these greens and just very basically putting in big groups of colour here for the back trees. I'm being quite loose with these. I'm kind of just seeing the edges, and I'm using my brush quite loosely, so I'm kind of just tapping it on. There's a lot of pigment on my brush which helps, and that gives it texture automatically. and I'll just keep mixing in slightly different shades of greens for some of these bushes down here. I want to leave space for that little statue there, and I am working quite small, so I'm not going to get all of the detail in, but I definitely want to include it, so I need to remember to leave space, so I'll just work around that. And I'm not going to get exact on this photo, but that's okay. I kind of just want to get the kind of feeling of the photo. It doesn't have to be exact. I'm always a advocate for not necessarily following the reference exactly. It's totally okay if you make it like your own version of it. Down here in the front, I want to leave some space for those purple flowers. So again, I'm going to work negatively around those. And you can see I'm really being quite loose with my marks, and like this isn't exactly where the leaves are, but you can kind of tell what they are, so it doesn't have to be exact. Let's do a time check. Okay, we are basically 6 minutes through, so we're doing well. I think we're on track. I want to allow enough time for this to dry because I want to put on all the details later, which, as you know, is my favourite part. So I want to make sure we've got time for that, and luckily the gouache does dry quite quickly here, but I know you can use a hairdryer. I know TJ loves a hairdryer to get things to dry quicker, especially when you're working on very fast timers. I'm going to start putting in some of these leaves in the pond, so I'm keeping with the green and working around the page, so that because I've got green on my brush, it makes sense to just continue with this, and just mixing in different some more yellow, some more blue, to try and vary up the shades. Hi Vagonda. So I'm going to mix up another bit of green here. There is a lot of green in this photo, but there are also some lots of purples, and there's a bit of orange and yellow flowers on the side here. So I've gone a bit wider here on the photo, but the beauty of this one, I think, is you can add in and kind of work out what would go there anyway. So I'm just going to add in some more flowers here. The colours won't go over the green very well, which is why I'm leaving white gaps around it instead. And that's probably like not the right scale, but that's okay. I just want to kind of suggest that there are flowers there. And then there's some white flowers here, so I'll leave some gaps there. We're almost there with the greens. I want to darken this bit here, so I'm going to mix some brown into my green, because it looks a lot more natural than if you were putting black into your painting. So to darken up the greens, I'm using brown. I also have to put in the trees at the top as well. Hopefully you're all getting on okay. I think this is coming along well. I do work quite quickly, but that's just been a lot of practice, so don't worry if you're working slower than I am. Like I said, the reference is in the description box, so you can take that and come back to it to finish it off later, or continue after the live stream. We're probably going to be on here for about an hour. But you're welcome to carry on and use the images in the description. I'm sure my grandma would be super chuffed to know that you're all drawing along with me with this one. So far I've left some white space here for the pond, because I want to go in probably with a bit more of a washy layer. And a lighter layer to try and capture the reflection. The next thing I want to do is add in the trees at the top. Hi Anna and Anna. Oh, thank you so much, Anna. and I hope that you enjoy this one. I think I usually do live streams on my Patreon, but it's always nice to open it up sometimes, and like especially to mark big events, it's nice to do it on a more public platform as well. But like I said, we usually do this on Patreon, so I do these every other month, and then a Zoom call every month. And I'm definitely getting more confident with them, like creating on camera whilst chatting away. The more I've done, the more comfortable it feels, because obviously, like, usually when I paint, it's just me or my phone, like, recording it, which is basically what this is, but it feels a bit more nerve-wracking when it's live, you know? Oh, that's alright, Anna. Thank you so much. Anna's just started a daily art challenge as well, which is always fun to see. I find them so good for like prioritizing creating and like practicing more, and I do find that my biggest sort of growth comes from these daily challenges, because I am forcing myself to do it every day, and I find that really interesting and really good for my creative practice. They are a lot of work, and sometimes I put too much pressure on myself. I think that's one of the things that I learned in the first one. So this is my second daily art challenge. I did one for a whole year, which I couldn't commit to this year because it's a very busy summer coming up. But I'm really glad I did this 100-day one, because I've still seen a lot of growth in my work. I mentioned it on Instagram earlier that I prefer the last half of the daily art challenge work-wise, and I think that just shows that I've sort of improved, and I think that's always a really nice feeling as an artist, to be able to sort of see that and to acknowledge it. Yeah, Anna recommends them as well. Do I have any tips for starting a daily art challenge? You just finished your exam, so thinking about starting one. Oh, that's exciting. It already looks so happy. Oh, and colourful, thank you. So I have recorded a YouTube video actually all about that, all about my tips and tricks, so that's on my channel if you want to see it. Hopefully that will help, but definitely make it work for you. This daily art challenge I'm doing now is 5 days a week. Last year I did 6 days a week, but you could do it every other day. I think the main thing I always recommend is make it work for your lifestyle. The whole thing is to enjoy it, and you don't want to get burnt out or resent it. So finding a way that it fits into your schedule, I think, is really, really important. And then, like I said, it's like managing your expectations. It's okay to do a doodle one day. That absolutely still counts as daily art. You know, sometimes as artists we put way too much pressure on ourselves to create amazing finished pieces every day, and this is my job. I'm lucky enough that I can do this and spend more time on it, but if you've got other things to juggle or really busy with family life, then maybe just a quick sketch is better for you, and I think that's really important to acknowledge when you are doing a daily art challenge. So those are like my biggest points, but like I said, I have got a video with some like way more thoughts and feelings on how to do a daily art challenge, so I hope that's helpful. Oh, you're welcome. You have to let me know how you find it, but I always recommend doing a daily art challenge because I have learnt so much about myself from it, but you have to make it work for you, because I don't want to like encourage burnout or anything like that. So I think I've done all of the green on here now. Let's do a time check. We've got just under 16 minutes left, so we're just under halfway, and I've got my base layer down of the green, so I'm going to go in and do the pond. There's lots of lily pads in there and some reflection there. It gets very dark towards the back, so I'm going in with my lightest layer first, and then I'll go on top with probably a pencil just to get the really defined lines. I'm trying to go around where there will be lily pads, and I'm just going to put, I think it's easier to work lightest here to darkest, and we can always work on top with our details. It's not super blue, but I want it to, I always amp up the saturation in my paintings anyway, so that's kind of like part of my style. I want it to look like a pond, so I'm making it blue even though it's kind of like a really dark brown in some of the shadow areas. But again, I'll come in with my dark indigo pencil probably to darken those bits up. Okay, so I'll come in. I'm not being like super precise with the shapes for the lily pads. I don't think I have to, because I think you'll know it's a pond and you can still kind of tell what it is. A lot of art is just suggesting to the viewer what it is. You don't actually have to put that much detail in it. Oh, I just did a big blob there. Why did I do that? Yeah, you kind of just have to suggest it. So I forgot that my brush was dirty there. Let's just brush that way. So I'm just kind of suggesting that these are lily pads, and I think the viewer will fill it in, especially because it's such a small scale for me. So this is drying really nicely, and it's almost dry. I think I'm going to mix up a colour for this statue. Again, I won't be able to get the amount of detail that it actually has. You'll probably be able to see on the larger image, which I've linked in the description, that it's like a little girl and a little boy, and it's actually a fountain that goes into this pond, but I can't get that level of detail at this scale, so I'll just suggest that it's there. And again, I'm just putting in the block shape, and then I'll go in with my details, and then I'll add on any shadows or anything. At this point I'm just blocking in the basic shapes, and I think it's working out okay. Let me know if you want me to zoom in or if it's okay at this size. Hopefully you're all getting on okay as well. And I know some of you will be watching this on replay, so that will be really cool to see if you want to share what you're creating on stories or on Instagram. I always love seeing your work. It's always so nice to see what you create, and I find it so interesting as artists on what we're creating with the same references, because our style really shows through, and I love that. So I'm gonna mix up a purple, I think, for these flowers in the foreground. So I'll put some red on my palette. Let's mix that up a bit. And I'll mix that with my blue. And again, it's less about the shape of the flower, I think. Oops, that's quite dark. I think it's more of just suggesting that there's a flower there. So I'm not sure what flowers these are, but I think it's obvious they're flowers. So I'm not really looking at the petal shapes or anything. I'm kind of just putting in a splodge of colour here, and then I can always define it with the details. Yes, and we are doing another one after this. So this first one is 30 minutes, and then the second one is 20 minutes, and that's a coastal view. We have got 11 minutes left on this one, and then we'll be moving on to the second one. So there are some flowers going over the pond, so I'll add some purple blobs, and then I'll add on some pencil stems. Okay, perfect, Anna, that's great. and my water is getting really dirty, so I have a second water jug for the next image as well, because I find that muddying up colours is really easy to do, and it does make a difference actually having clean water. So I'm going to mix in some yellow and orange over here for the flowers at the bottom. I don't use orange very much, so it's very dried out, and a lot of my gouache is second hand as well, so they're very, very old, but it's still usable. It just means I have to push a little bit harder. This one is a new one because I use cadmium yellow all the time, and I usually mix that with my oxide of chromium green. These are my two favourite gouache colours, and I use them in basically every single painting. Today I obviously used the green from the Royal Talons, which is the olive green, but it's very similar to oxide of chromium. But I'm going to use this on its own for the minute, and then add it in with a bit of orange. This looks so diddy on screen. Like I said, I'm usually working a lot bigger, but there were quite a lot of different scenes I want to include in this little zine, so I wanted to make it small enough. This is, I'll show you in a minute in case you missed the beginning, but this is a little zine that I've made from an A3 piece of paper, and then I folded it down into this zine, so it's nothing fancy. It's actually really simple to make, and I just really like the effect of it. So I'm just adding on little blobs of colour throughout, just to tie that around the page. Add some more yellow over here, to suggest some flower beds, and then I might do some more purple up here as well. And I'm going to have to stop with the paint layer in a minute because I need to let this dry so I can add on our details. I think we are there though with the paint, so I'm going to stop there, and I'll show you this little zine so far. So I'll show you how it folds out, because it is just one piece of paper. So this is the one that we've just done, and then these are the previous threads. So it actually folds out like this. I'll keep the reference up, but it doesn't completely fill the screen because it's such a large piece of paper. But it's A3 folded in half, half again, and then I cut a slit in the middle. This is a tutorial from Austin Kleon, and I've also got a tutorial on my Patreon for this. But they're really easy to use, to make. You can do it on A4 paper and cut the middle, basically any size paper, and if you fold it and fold it again and then cut the middle, it creates a little booklet. So that's how it comes together. So you can work on these flat if that's easier, but I found it better to just work on it like this today. And it folds up like that, and it's super easy. This is just a piece of paper I tore from an A3 sketchbook, and I cut off the little spiral bits from where it was bound and made this little zine with it. So perfect for really quick little booklets, and not too many pages either, I don't think. So I've got these little bits of paper here just to stop things from smudging, which is exactly what I do in my sketchbook as well, because I use near colours so much, and when I work on top of them or the next page, the pressure can make things smudge. Enough rambling, we've only got 6 minutes left on this one, so I'm going to start putting on all my details. So I've got my luminance colours and some Derwent drawing pencils, and I also want to find my favourite dark indigo pencil. Might use a brown and a blue. Somewhere I've got a dark green, There it is. And there we go. Okay, so I'm going to stick with those colours for now, and I'm going to start adding on my details. So again, it doesn't have to be precise. You know me, I love a scribble. So I'm just going to suggest some more leaves, that these are like really full. I've definitely simplified the foreground here, basically with just grasses instead of the specific shapes of those leaves. And I think that works quite nicely to simplify a piece, but still show that it's a garden. Like, we don't have to put in every single leaf here for you to know what it is. So I'm going to darken back here as well, just to add in a bit more shading. And some more scribbles. Okay, I definitely do want to add on, I think I'll do a really light wash of green for the lily pads. But again, I'll use the coloured pencils. If you're not close to finishing, I did say at the beginning, you're welcome to come back to it. Like if you need longer than 30 minutes, I might have to come back to finish some of it as well. But the link is down below in the description box. So here's the dark indigo pencil that I was referencing earlier, that I'm going to use to come in just to darken up some of these around, some of the water around these lily pads. And then I also want to add on some details to that statue. Oh, thank you, Anya. So like I said, I can't get all of the details, so I'm just going to suggest. And I also want to darken up some of these. Maybe I'll use the brown. Some of these trunks. And just going to grab a light grey pencil. Hi Diane, lovely to see you, and thank you very much. Yeah, it's been really fun to do. I've really enjoyed it, and 100 days definitely feels like a good amount of time. And I'll probably do another one in the future. I can't ever resist. I do find him super helpful for creating, so although I will be taking a break from daily posting when this is over, I'll still be creating. I won't be sharing every day. I would like to create still every day, but I really want to see what I create without any pressure. I want to see what I want to paint without knowing I'm going to be sharing on Instagram, which I think is going to be a really interesting thing to see after being, sharing everything on Instagram so far. So I'm interested to see if I can keep it up just with me as the accountability, and see if that changes anything. Oh, hi Emma, thanks for popping in. We've got 1 minute and 15 seconds left on this one, so time for the last little bits you want to add. My last little bits will be adding on the suggestion of paving slabs around the pond, and then we're moving on to our next image. So this one's quite simple in terms of how I've taken the very detailed reference image and simplified it for this size and scale, and to do it in 30 minutes. So hopefully that was helpful to see. I know it can be quite scary seeing an image like that and thinking I've only got half an hour to do it, but you can actually get quite a lot done in half an hour. And obviously I have had a lot of practice on doing shorter timers, which definitely helps, and sort of having that confidence to put down the marks and not sketching first, that definitely speed things up as well. So last 5 seconds. Oh, okay. Oh, sorry if that was super loud into the microphone. And it seems so long to you that you've done Inktober a few times already, so oh, definitely. Yeah, I was saying earlier that it doesn't have to be super elaborate. Like for your daily art challenge, it can just be a doodle. But 30-day challenges are always a good place to start, and then you can always go up from there. You could do 50 and then see if you want to continue it. So just making it work for you, because obviously if you're doing really intricate pieces every day, it will put on a lot of pressure. Oh, hi Adrienne, just joined. The piece looks wonderful, thank you. Diane struggles with simplifying complex images. What do I suggest as the best way to get started? So I would say focus on like the main shapes. Obviously there's so much detail in this image, and sometimes like squinting can help to try and see like the main shapes. So like obviously in the foreground we've got all those flowers, and simplifying that into like just a green blob with some lines is basically what I did. Same with the shapes at the back. So trying to make it as simple as possible in terms of shape first and colour, and then working your details on top of that. And that's usually how I find with complex images, is to start with the main shapes and then add on like the details and the depth and like the shading on top of that. So hopefully seeing how I did that with this piece has helped in terms of putting down those block colours first and then building on top. And like you could keep adding layers and layers to this to make it more detailed, but obviously we're going to stop there for this one. Siobhan put too much paint on the paper. You need another year to dry. That's the thing with timers, is you have to work quickly, and like you have to wait for things to dry. Oh, no problem, you're not late, it's all good. Too much traffic. But there will be a replay for this one, so you can always catch up with the beginning. So I'm going to change our reference now to our next one. So we've got 20 minutes for this one, which should take us to bang on 1 o'clock. But if you're not finished, you can always add on more afterwards. And I'm also going to chat afterwards. So if you need to rush off at 1, we're probably going to overrun a little bit. So if you need to rush off, then please do. That's totally fine. Like I said, there's a replay so you can catch up. Okay, so I'm going to be working on the front cover. I might actually work with this one open out. No, I'm going to stick with it like this. So I'm going to do a full page image for this one. You can see the reference here on the left. Okay, no problem. Yeah, isn't it a lovely reference? This is from Pexels. Again, if you want to see it full size, it's down below in the description. I'm probably going to focus, so I'm going to put my title here. So I'm going to focus on like the top half and move it down of this image and have a really big horizon, sky with a low horizon compared to what's on the image, because I want to put the title of the scene here. So I'm going to start our 20-minute timer so that we don't overrun too much. And yeah, like I said, I'm going to do more sky than actually is in the image and bring that foreground closer. So I've got my clean water jug here. Probably should use a cleaner brush, but this is my favourite brush. This is the size 10 Graduate De La Rowney in the round. I really love round brushes. I'm not super loyal to a specific brand, but this one is a really good and affordable one to use. So I'm going to mix in, start with my blues. Like I said earlier, I find that they get dirty quickly and the easiest, so I tend to start with the sky always. I'm also going to add in a little lighthouse on the rocks, which I think will look really cute. So like the reference is kind of just our starting point, and you can always add like a little house or something. I'm going to start with where I want my horizon. So like I said, I want it quite low, and then I'll work up from there. I also need to put in, leave space for my lighthouse. So I do find it quite easy to like work negatively for where you want it to start, if you've got anything on the horizon line. And I'm doing a light blue down the bottom towards where that horizon line is, and then I'm going to go a little bit darker as we work our way up. So I'll make a nice little, oh, I was going to do full gradient, but actually I want to add in some clouds. So again, there's no clouds on this image in the sky, but I really love painting in clouds, so I'm going to add my own in. I want this to be nice, and so it's not going to be a super smooth gradient, but I want to suggest that the sky is darker at the top. Let's take this off. I just really love painting in these little stylized clouds that I've been doing. So I'm going to add that in, even though it's not on the reference. I did try and pick a much simpler image for this one, so it's not as complicated as like my grandma's garden was. So hopefully that will make things a little bit easier if you are painting along, especially with 20 minutes. I know that's not very long. So I'm going to leave it quite blank in the middle because that's where I'm going to draw on my title. I really should have left some space for clouds here, but I got a bit carried away. That's alright, we'll make it work. I'm just going to fill this in. And I've got all of the text to add on to this little zine afterwards, and then I'll photograph it and then I'll pop it up on onto Instagram on the grid today. So it's really nice to be able to do this like with some company today, and to like paint real time before I pop it up later like I normally would. Okay. So this is just the paper that I was trying to protect this one on. So it's not the smoothest gradient. This paper isn't great for wet medium, but it's not coming through, so that's a good sign. Now I'm just going to put in the darker blue for the ocean, and I mix that with a bit of purple, just to try and distinguish that a little bit from the sky. I'm going to put in a little island over here, and then we'll have the rocks coming down. So I'm kind of just marking in where I want the land to be. There are some white like waves, like the froth from the waves. So I'm going to suggest that by just going around it with my paint. And I can start adding in some green to try and suggest like turquoise. And then I'm going to come in as well at the front with that foreground layer I mentioned. So I'll leave that there and I'll come in with green. Hopefully this all makes sense. Do let me know if you have any questions. and I'm just gonna pretend there's like a cove here. So again, I'm kind of making the reference work for me and how I want it to look. But it's a really good starting point, just to have that there with something to base it off of for us to draw along together. So I'm going to start putting in our rocks and like the cliff face behind. So I'm using, let me colour for you so you can see what I'm mixing. I'm using a warm grey, which is Dale Rowney, and then I'm kind of mixing in with the flesh tint as well to create a warmer grey, so it's a bit more pinky. And vary that a little bit. My brush is quite wet, which helps for rocky textures. And just dabbing that on. To just suggest a cliff face, and then I'll come in, so I started quite light and then I'll come in with my darker tones. So I've got a brown here, just to try and suggest that like rockiness of the cliff face. And I'll go in really, I think I can go in darker, so I'm going to put some more brown on my palette. So it is still quite wet. Oh, I need to remember the bottom of that lighthouse as well. So I think that's all the brown. I kind of work colour to colour, but I'm also not afraid of like coming back in if I need to add more. It's not like I'll do the gouache layer, then I'll move on to details and I can't go back to gouache. The way that I work tends to be a bit more intuitive, and so I'll come back to it if I need to. I'm going to mix up some green. To fill in some of this. So I'll need some more actual green to mix it with. Get some more down. Let's do a time check. We've got just over 11 minutes left, so we're coming up to halfway on this one. Hopefully it's all going all right for you. So I want this lighthouse shape isn't quite right, but that's all right. We'll fix it when we do our details. I want the land to come up behind it. We'll go a bit darker here to suggest some sort of trees. And we'll filter that down to the rocks. I'm kind of using my brush at an angle here, which gives like a steeper sort of suggestion that this is like a hill. But I'll also use my details as well to add in some more like grass things, make it look a little bit more detailed, because at the moment I think this doesn't quite look like a cove. But I think it's quite a cute little scene. I'm going to add in some green at the front here. So this is I'm kind of suggesting like there's a foreground here that the viewer is standing on and then looking out towards the lighthouse. And I think I'll do my usual little swoops. There's a lot of media on this page. It feels a lot wetter than the garden scene that we just did. so I'll have to add on the title, I think, off screen, because I don't think this is going to dry in time. But just like with the garden scene, I've done my base layer. Generally when I am on timer, I find that I spend about half the time on like the base painty layer, and then half the time on details, which generally is what works out. So we've gone a little bit over, so we've got 8.5 minutes left. I'm going to let this dry a little bit because it's not, it's still quite wet. Oh, I forgot that little rocky outcrop in the distance, so we'll add that in. And I'm going to mix a lighter green because it is in the distance, so I don't want it as strong. There we go. I'll add a bit of brown, just to suggest that there's something out there on the horizon. You can see a lot of texture in my sky, so it's not super smooth down, but I think that's alright. I can always add on some near colour as well. I do want to add on some details to the lighthouse, but I'm going to try and let this dry around it first. The sea does seem quite dry, so I might start coming in with some details for that. I always like to do my little lines to suggest the waves. And we're just going to start adding on some suggestions here. So obviously waves can be quite like frothy with the foam, and sometimes water can be really hard to sort of paint and replicate. So I like to stylize it a little bit with these lines. It just shows a bit more movement, I think, and it's just part of the style that I've sort of developed. But I think leaving the white of the page definitely helps, rather than doing it full blue. But if you have done full blue, a white near colour sometimes works really nicely to add that white over the top. Oh, Twilight is inspiring you to try acrylic gouache. So I'm not actually using acrylic gouache, I'm just using normal gouache. So this is regular gouache. I've never actually used acrylic gouache, but it looks fantastic. It looks really interesting. And obviously it can't be reactivated, whereas normal gouache can. So like all of this paint on my paper, on my palette paper, I can re-wet and use again. I'm just going to add on, so this is a burnt ochre 50% luminance pencil. I find this really good for warming up. This is still quite wet, so I might not be able to use it much. It's fine, I've obviously been a lot harsher, or a lot more wet with my paintbrush on this one than I did with the other one, which dried really quick. This one is still quite wet. And I don't have a heat gun, and I don't want to blast your ears off. 5 minutes and 10 seconds left, so we've still got some time. Hopefully this will be dry for our last couple of minutes to add on the details, because actually it's surprising how quickly you can do things like that. It doesn't actually take as long as you think. What I am going to do is start to shade in this lighthouse and add some details there. So I don't have a reference for this lighthouse, so I'm kind of just winging it, but I do want to make it look a little bit 3D. Oops. And I'm going to add on, so I'm not going to make it a stripy lighthouse. I think this will just be a black and white one. Maybe I'll change my mind later, but for now I'm gonna stick with just a white lighthouse. I'll put a little window there. So it's quite simple, but I like the way that it stands out against the sky. So I can come in here where I can neaten up a little bit of the shape. So obviously, because I don't sketch first, sometimes my paint can be in the wrong place, but I find it really helpful to neaten things up with your coloured pencil layer. So even if you feel like you've gone wrong with the way you've put the paint, you can definitely use your pencils to fix that, or just lean into it, which also works. Sometimes mistakes lead us to learning new things, and that's always a good thing. So I say always embrace your mistakes. Oh, Hannah says you can try the Ranger Heat It Craft Tool heat gun. It's really quiet. Oh, that's really good to know. Thanks, Hannah. That's a really good recommendation. I've not heard of that. I haven't actually looked into heat guns, but I think that would be really useful for like mixed media work, and even in like art journals. So for a time check for you, we've got 2 minutes 45 seconds left. This is still quite wet, but I think this is dry in the front, so I'm going to do my usual little grass lines and suggestions, and maybe I'll add some here. Oops. Do my usual little scribbles. I also find that the dark indigo works really well, even though it's not green. I wonder whether to do a little bit of collage there actually. I mean, talk about not planning. I wasn't planning on doing collage, but I wonder whether a little pop of pink. I'm just getting a scrap of paper so I can make some quick collage paper and do some very simple suggestions of flowers. Well, they might be a bit big, but I'm just going to cut out some circles. We've got 1.5 minutes left. That Tombow is quite wet on this paper, but I quite like the idea of adding in a bit of colour down the bottom. I think a yellow would work really nicely as well. And I find collage is great because you can take it away. It's not like a definite decision. Like, oh, if I think yellow would work better, I can just make some yellow ones. What do you think? Do you think the pink is alright? Difficult references. Yeah, sorry, Christiane. You had fun experimenting with Neocolor 2 and water brush pen. Oh, nice. If you do show on Instagram, I'd love to see it. They are quite tricky, and I apologise. I never make things very easy for us, but sometimes challenging things are good. And sometimes, a lot of the times, I think we surprise ourselves because I think we can limit ourselves a bit more than we realise. And stop to paint now because if you continue, you're sure it will be too much. Yeah, that's the other thing, is like knowing when to stop. I totally understand what you mean. It can be really difficult to know. We've got 10 seconds left. I quite like it with these flowers, but I do wonder whether it would look better with yellow. Knowing when to stop is very hard. That is so true, and honestly I think that's like the hardest part about being an artist, is when to step away. I think we are coming to the end. Obviously it is 1 o'clock, but I'm just going to do a bit of yellow to see if I want yellow flowers down here or not. But if you do have to rush off, then that's totally fine too. Hello! We are just coming to the end of the live stream, but I'm just cheating our timer a little bit and spending a little bit longer. We've used 2 references today, which are in the description box, but you're welcome to carry on and paint those, or the replay will be up after this as well. This is the yellow flower. I think I prefer the pink actually. maybe we will stick with pink. And I'll probably add on some more texture to those off stream. And I'm going to add on my title here. Oh, thank you for being here. Yeah, we are coming to the end, but if you want to watch the replay, that will be on the channel once I've ended this one. So I haven't stuck these little flowers on, but this is going to be the front cover of my little zine. You were looking for an excuse to record YouTube late this morning. So let me take those off before they fall off. And I'll take my little pieces of paper out. So I'm going to show you a little sneak to the finished zine. Obviously I still need to add on the title and all of the text. But this is what I'll be sharing later as the end of our daily art challenge. Thank you so much for being here and watching me do it. This is the full piece of paper. Let me take off our reference so that you can see. So this was an A3 piece of paper. There's still a page I need to finish there, but this folds up into a little zine to celebrate the end of the daily art challenge. I used gouache, so traditional gouache. I actually didn't end up using much of the near colour, but this is still drying, so I think I'm going to add near colour on top. So gouache for the base and then coloured pencils on top. So this will be our front cover. Then we've got this spread, which are pieces that I've done earlier in the challenge. So this zine is like a celebration of reaching day 100. Then this one with like another mini sketchbook zine. Be interesting to see if you recognise any of these from Instagram. This is the other one that we painted today. So this was my grandma's garden. It was a very complicated reference image, but hopefully it was helpful to see how I like simplified it. And I'll fill in this page next. And then the final page, which again I need to add on my text and add on a little oil pastel lemur here. And then the one that we've just finished. So this will be the front cover. So I hope you enjoyed painting along with me and seeing how these bits came together, especially for the last day. A huge thank you for all of your support, for reaching 40k on Instagram and for your support during this daily art challenge. I've had a lot of fun. It's been so lovely to interact, and it feels like a massive, like really lovely community over on Instagram, and a massive help for me to encourage me to keep creating, and your support is honestly, it means the world to me. So thank you so much for being here. If you're watching on recap, thank you for watching, and if you're here live, thank you for keeping me company. Thank you all for your lovely comments. I'm really glad that you enjoyed painting together. And yeah, like I said, I am going to try and take a little break. I'll probably create for me, but I might be sharing less on Instagram. It won't be daily. I'm going to take the pressure off for the next few months, but I'll still be around and I'll still be creating. And if you want more content, then obviously I am on Patreon. So thank you all for hanging out. I'm going to stop talking and finish this before I post later. So I will see you all really soon, and see you over on Instagram. See you later, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.